A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back once again to HJN Super Graphics, of which we're going to go in a more recent direction, while at the same time giving us a bit of a classic feel to games as we know of today. One such example, of course, is a game known as Nuclear Blaze. As the title pretty much suggests, this is the type of game that gives us the old classic side-scrolling and platforming vibe, but at the same time incorporates a fresh new story. This, of course, involves a brave fireman. But he's not just any fireman. He is one of those whom is given a very special job. A certain investigation involving an abandoned complex, being infested with flames. However, these flames are in fact the works of some sort of mysterious evil, pretty much. The further you go into the building, the more lore you discover, the more secrets are revealed, and more importantly, the footprints of whomever is responsible for these fires and the endangerment of tons of people in that building are bound to lead to an ultimate showdown. I will say that in this case, this was a nice idea to piece together the likes of classic side-scrolling and action bits reminiscent of that of the Nintendo or Sega age, basically the late 80s, early 90s when the so-called console wars were in effect. Some of the same sound effects and even music can in fact correlate to that particular era where video games supposedly had the 8-bit or 16-bit processing that we remember. But while Nuclear Blaze might not necessarily hold up on the fronts of any of those games that had come out on either of those consoles back in the day, I'd say this still does mark for a nice piece of potential nostalgia, despite the fact that it's rather recent in contrast to what we've seen earlier. But let's be real here. I will say that this is a nice game, one that does give us a lot of challenge, including putting out the fires in a quick amount of time before they're reignited, and of course, getting the entire rooms cleared up before more fires spread, via smoldering. Because as we know, a firefighter's biggest duty is to keep the people safe from the wrathful 1,000-degree flames that are inside, or possibly even out. It's not just the flames themselves that can be harmful. Crumbling buildings, collapsing floors, smoke inhalation, and of course the inability to see in the dark, as that's often the case to where smoke and flames can in fact become even bigger of a problem. They always have the likelihood to hinder someone's escape. But in this case, the stakes are indefinitely raised. It's not just one firefighter, but it's the fact that there are so many flames inside that one building and all the floors you explore and the occasional communications with your superiors. And on top of all that, you've got plenty of missions that do allow for you to really challenge yourself. There's also a variety of gear and power-ups that you can pick up, again, calling back to the days where power-ups were indeed common amongst arcade, platformer, side-scroller type of games. So there's really lots of elements that I can point out are on the more nostalgic field, while at the same time feeling fresh and new in many ways possible. But really, the biggest thing about this game is the true source of all these fires. Because this wasn't just any person or arsonist or whatnot that's responsible for all this, but it's the works of a certain fire creature. Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. And being about 1 year since I first played the game itself, and I managed to actually beat it. Because after defeating that final boss, and getting back up to the surface and celebrating with my fellow firemen, the credits roll and eventually made my way back to the menu, it unfortunately only came out to less than 2 hours of gameplay. So this once again brings up my point to how games sometimes happen to be very short. because the high prices that we pay for them don't seem to quite work out all too well here. If it were a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, Ark Survival Evolved, Resident Evil, with all the remakes that we've gotten so far, and then some other games, I probably wouldn't mind spending a good 30, 40 bucks on a certain game, provided that it has plenty to offer. But even Dragon's Dogma, Dark Arisen, the first Dragon's Dogma, of course, which was a special edition for the PS4, long before we actually got the sequel, Dragon's Dogma 2. The thing is, all these games had so much in terms of time span from start to finish. And when you think about it, the prices that have gone up significantly since the time of the PS5 and Xbox Scarlet had all come around, along with the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2, this really goes to show that with how expensive the hardware itself is, plus all the games associated with it, whether physical copies or digital copies, wouldn't it make sense to have games even bigger, not just in file size, but also better in many ways? The time span could be one big thing. Even if it's one long, senseless story with a lot of drag and a lot of filler, I would be more than satisfied with the fact that if the game were that long, it would be of good reason to have this kind of money spent. Considering that some people are not necessarily on such a big budget for gaming, even nowadays. It seems that some people might have struggles with arranging a gaming budget, whether they're planning to shop at GameStop or department stores like Walmart, Meijer, or Target, or even the times where they might go to the actual PlayStation Store, Microsoft Store, or any other such venue that is known to offer games at relatively low prices. So, I don't really see the excuse by all accounts. But the thing is, when it comes to this whole spectrum of understanding that the time span from start to finish in one particular game, even something like this, when it turns out to be something that's incredibly short, given the price tag, it proves to be kind of a problem. I'm sure some people could probably find replay value in these things, but the way I see it, there's not much about it that you can do other than just go around and collect certain things or even unlock trophies. In my case, I practically did a good job the way I did, unlocking 13 trophies in my one and only playthrough of the game. So, with Nuclear Blaze overall being completed, not much more can be stated from my perspective. And my overall final statements on this game itself, along with my scoring, is that Nuclear Blaze is a good piece that remarks a lot of nostalgia in many minds. But honestly, should the time span be even larger than it is, it probably would be more than worth the money. And the overall score for this one, it does have its pros and its big con, which does in fact bring it around to only a mere 6.6 out of 10.1. And I won't exactly say that it should be bad, but if you're really looking for the nostalgia factor, I'm sure that even the PlayStation Store might offer this at a lower price. But in any seriousness, for those who are only looking to get CD copies, maybe avoid this one. Because there's definitely tons of games that you can get at good prices and have good rewards and benefits from it. So, I will see you guys tomorrow with another piece of HJN. And, of course, there's still plenty more for me to cover. I will say, after a few dozen more entries in Super Graphix, I could probably call it quits. So, I will see you guys next time here on HJN. And make sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side for more.